Welcome everybody back to Fire Talk. Not going live today, doing a little recording, and I'm recording from the kitchen. We got Chase here. We want to talk about some trade stuff. Yesterday, Isaac and I made a video talking about trading away Dylan Cease and like what that would look like, what's the possibilities, because he's just been rumored over and over and over. Today, we're gonna kind of go over basically, hey, this is what we think the Padres should do if they were to trade Dylan Cease away. So kind of like the part 2 from yesterday's video. I'm recording in my kitchen. I'm watching March Madness. Got the bets rolling through here. So I think you can actually see it a little bit. Look, if you look in the microwave, I think you can see a little bit. But either way, going to get into a guy today. And we got Chase on. So we're talking today about Sandy Alcantara, one of Chase's favorite pitchers. And if you've been following the channel for a long time, you would know that Chase wanted to trade for him. I believe it was 21. So you would have got a really good end of the season to 2021 if the Padres had it. And they were rumored to trade to be like looking at him. And they would have got that end of the season, which the Padres really needed that year because they had a collapse. They needed a starting pitcher. They missed out on Max Scherzer, right? Like all that stuff happened. That would have been the best move to make. It didn't work out. All right. And I feel like the Padres have inquired a lot with the Marlins too, in specific. You know, you had the Rise trade last year, and they tried to go get Alcantara, but they didn't end up getting him. 22 monster season. He wins Cy Young, just ridiculous numbers. He had 6 complete games that year, just an absolute beast. Comes back 23 late in the season, ends up getting Tommy John and missed the entirety of last year's season. So now we're looking at it. Like I said, this is our scenario. I mean, I guess you don't have to technically trade Dylan Cease in this case. Like you could go and get him and just add starting depth, especially with the Darvish injury, because you're looking now, you're like, okay, you got Darvish hurt. We don't know what we're going to see. It doesn't seem, I know elbow tightness is like the scariest thing in the world for pitchers, but they're not acting like it's super, super serious, which I can't really believe them. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It does sound concerning. But they talked about it more as day-to-day to start, which I do think is a lot more encouraging because if you remember right, like Musgrove last year, like I know he's missing the start of this, Darvish missing the start of the season too, but with Musgrove last year, it was like he's week to week. He's going to have 2 weeks off and whatever. For Darvish, they're more like, we're going to give him a couple days. He should be fine. And so hopefully that's the case, but we don't know yet. That's just the reality of it. Now, if you're to trade Dylan Cease is on a 1-year contract. He's making about a little over $14 million. Sandy Alcantara, his contract, and this is why I think this is a really potentially a really good move for the Padres. He makes 17 this year, 17 next year, and the year after he has a $21 million club option. So you're getting him, you're getting additional control. They're pretty close in age, I want to say. I'm expecting that Dylan Cease is going to price him out of the Padres market. Is going to price himself out of the Padres market no matter what this offseason. I think Michael King is a guy that makes a lot more sense to extend. I would have liked them to extend him this season. Maybe they do it early on in the year, right? He's opening day starter. Maybe that's what happens. Either way, this gives you a lot more flexibility because the Padres lineup is good. The Padres have a lot of building blocks and really good pieces. They have some guys under contract. I feel like everyone's really like, oh God, this is so bad. And like everyone's kind of bleak about it. But they have a lot of stuff to build on. Starting pitching is the question mark. You go and you trade for a guy like Alcantara. You get a guy that could potentially be a rock. Now, Chase, I'll go over to you in just a second here. I have one more thing I want to say because this is like my initial thoughts on the deal. If you were to go trade for him, I think this is the way that we both see it. But basically, it's more risky this season to go trade for him. Dylan Cease is coming off of a really good year. He's started 32 or 33 games in the last 4 seasons, but he's only on a 1-year deal. So it's more risky. Alcantara's coming off Tommy John. However, for the future, it gives you more flexibility, and it's probably safer long-term, expecting that he comes back to somewhat of the form that he used to be as a pitcher. And we have a couple reasons to believe that he can do that. But those are my initial thoughts. I really like this idea. I also think that if you were to trade Dylan Cease and trade for Sandy Alcantara, I think you're going to gain prospect capital, which is extremely rare, or even it out, but I think that's extremely rare when you're talking about a guy that's under contract for 3 years versus a guy that's under contract for 1 year. So I like this idea a lot. I like it a lot. It would be cool if they kept Cease, right? Of course, it'd be awesome if they extended him, whatever. However, I think this is the better long-term move.
Yeah, 100%. One, Cease really doesn't go above like 170 innings. Like if you want a guy that eats innings, he's your guy. during a young year, I think he threw like 220 innings. He throws just as hard as Cease. He has the same off speed as Cease. I know if you look at his baseball savant from last year, or not last, but 2023, his stuff was like his off speed value was incredibly low. But if you looked at his 2022 season, it was in the 100th percentile. 2023 was in the 10th percentile. You can look at that and go, that was just his bum elbow. He still threw 170, 180 innings with a bum elbow before he eventually had to have Tommy John surgery. And even with his like that low of off speed value, he was only in the low 4 ERAs. When you have a guy that's throwing 200 innings, kind of nice to have. Musgrove, it just is coming off TJ. You got Darvish hurt, and then you got Cease and King and Nick Pivetta. Throwing one other guy that can just throw and go deep into the games and save your bullpens. It's going to save you when one of these guys is going to be inconsistent. We know Cease is great, but we also know he's kind of rides the waves of being really, really good and then having a few really rough games and then being really, really good again. Having a guy that can just be consistently go out there and throw 6-7 innings. I mean, hell, during a Cy Young through 6 complete games. That saves you a ton later in the season when guys, especially in the bullpen, get fatigued. It just kind of saves your whole pitching staff. And I'm not too worried about Tommy John. I know his location is probably not going to be there, and they're probably going to have him on like a pitching and inning limit this year just so that his arm continuously builds back strength. That's even if they really attempt that. He didn't pitch all of last year. He had all of last year coming into this year. And if the Padres do trade for him, I'm not really too worried about his off speed either. We have what people say is either the best or the second best pitching coach in all of baseball. Ruben Niebla has done wonders with almost every pitcher that he's worked with. We've seen it true, kind of everybody in the pitching staff. And so I believe his stuff would come right back. And like Matt was saying, his market value is going to be cheaper. He's making a few more million than Cease this year. That's if you decide, trade one for one. You can realistically try to keep both. But it goes 17, 21. And even if he's giving you like a 3.3 ERA and he's giving you 200 innings, those guys are probably going to make 20 to 30 mil next year, depending on what the market is. We've seen it. The markets just keep going up and up. I mean, we just saw Wano sign a contract for $765 million, which I think all of us agree that was a huge overpayment. I think the only guy that's $700 million is Shohei, but he's pitching and is one of the best, if not the best hitter in all of baseball. So that is the argument to be made for the $700 million. And not only that, you look at it and you go, he gets a market. Okay, sure. But that's just the price of contracts. Having a pitcher that can give you 200 innings, go complete games, has the capability of being an ace in your rotation and not expecting to be the ace of the rotation for only $17 million, that's a damn good deal in my opinion. I take that deal. And you look at him. He has high velocity, has a really good slider, he has a really good changeup. He's got all the makings of it. And he goes deep into games. I don't see how anybody looks at this and goes, you know what? Why not take a swing on it? I think this is the perfect guy. If you're going to go trade out for somebody, this is the guy to do it. It's the perfect risk to reward value.
Yeah, something I've also noticed too is like with the Padres, just how they like typically train or trade is like they're kind of like shooting for like, okay, like we're gonna go after this guy, and they go after him for years and years and years, and then they eventually get him. Like you kind of know who they've been interested in. I feel like it's not really like a secret. It's like, oh, they like this guy, and then eventually they make a move for him or whatever, or that style of player, right? One thing I do think is interesting is like, and I think this is going to be a counter to this argument is like, hey, if you're trying to win a World Series this year, Dylan Cease is a better option, and you don't know what the future holds and stuff like that, like for this year.
Yeah.
And you brought up like the innings, so I looked it up. So I averaged his last 4 seasons, right? Cease actually is not like he's going pretty deep in terms of like seasons. He's averaging 178 innings a season, so a little bit more than you were thinking, but like still like that's really good. That's really good. I mean, look, we had Blake Snell on this team, and you're praying that he can get to 150, right? But with him, with Alcantara is like this year, I feel like even if like he's on like an innings limit, like he can still give you 180 because that's just his style, you know? Like so I do kind of wonder like with the Tommy John, I think you might be right. And I also think maybe people are like, oh, it's been a while since Sandy Alcantara's been good. That might be another kind of counter to this of like, okay, well, here's the thing. We were looking at some of the like advanced numbers, right? So let me pull this up for you. We had right here, we have his baseball savant. So this is 23, right? This is the year that Chase was talking about. He only pitched 28 games. He missed the last 4 or 5 games of the season, right? And he didn't have as good of a year. 4.14 ERA. Year before he had a 2.2, right? Under a 1 WHIP, over 200 strikeouts, and over 200 innings the previous 2 years. Then he blows out his arm, right? However, he was like pitching when he was jacked up this year. If you remember, you can see it right here. His off speed was not working, and that was a lot of it. Look at his pitch breakdown right here. He's throwing the slider 20% of the time, the curveball 2% of the time. He's throwing off speed 22% of the time. And changeup 27, but he throws a lot of changeups, right? But he's throwing these fastballs like this is a lot, you know? This is over 50% of the time, right? 51% of the time with the fastball. You go to the year before, and it's not that much different, but you're going to see one big number right here. Look at this, 10 percentile in off-speed value. Cy Young year, 100 percentile. Favorite pitch to throw, the changeup. Throwing the slider 22% of the time. And it's still like he's throwing this about the same amount, but he's throwing the changeup a little bit more. That's his most dominant pitch this year, right? So he's not throwing the curveball. I mean, I guess the amount of times that he's throwing it is pretty close. But I do think just like you see this kind of pop up a little bit, you see both them a little bit more, and look at the run value. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. Look at the chase. He's having people chase the 94th percentile, really high ground ball. Guys aren't extending on him. You go to the next year, still the same kind of guy, but he's just not as effective here. Still a lot of chase, still a lot of that, but they're hitting it a little bit more. So I do think that like that right there, this off speed is like, that's the difference in like what you're going to have with a healthy Sandy Alcantara or a guy that's bound to get Tommy John. And if you do remember, like it was like, yeah, he's going to get Tommy John. Like he's kind of pitching. You could see him like breaking down a little bit that year because he was coming off the Cy Young year. I was like, oh, what's wrong with him? And that was very clear what was wrong with him. It's been a full season now, a little over a full season. It's been, year and a half basically since he's been healthy. Also, Chase, you brought it up. Ruben Niebla, dude, that's the guy you want to go in and get your off speed fixed. Like that's the guy you want. You want to come back. You want to have that changeup really work, and you want to have that slider looking good to go along with the high velo fastball. I like it, dude. I like it a lot. But I do think that the take of like it's going to be more risky for this year than having Cease is fair. However, you talked about how streaky Cease is. You guys remember how Cease looked last year in the playoffs? First time previously in Cease's career, he struggled in the playoffs. He's a hard guy. Like, there's just different. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe in a couple of years, Cease pitches some more in the playoffs and he looks good. But seeing a guy come in the playoffs and just be lights out, you feel different. Like Darvish takes the mound, you feel good about Darvish. Musgrove takes the mound, you feel good about Musgrove, you know? And last year, you had two guys that, for Padre fans, you hadn't seen him pitch in big moments. You had Michael King and you had Dylan Cease. It was the most polar opposite playoff performances that you could have. You know, Cease just looked totally off. And the thing is, if he's cruising, if he's riding a hot streak, he's probably going to go out there and he's going to shove. But he's very up and down. And if you're watching game by game, like you remember, he would get into these crazy hot streaks. Like when he threw the no-hitter, he was in one of those where he was just insane. And then a lot of times you're like, dude, this guy's like, he's struggling. Still a really good year overall, but it's very up and down. Where like Darvish, like, you know what Darvish is going to give you every day. Like, you know that. Sandy Alcantara's the same way. He's a more of like, you know what he's going to give you. He's going to give you deep games. Maybe they might score 3-4 runs off of him, but he can still give you 7 innings. He's still going to give you a shot to win. And that's just the style that he plays. So I think also just for the Padres, like they, especially this year, they need a guy. You got Musgrove coming back from injury. We already have Darvish banged up. You need a guy that can go out there and throw a lot of innings. And if he can give you 180, if that's the expectation, is like his innings limit is 180, that's doable for him. He's had 2 years over 200 innings. And the year when his elbow was falling off, right, he gave you over 180. Like the dude just eats up innings. So I think that's the biggest takeaway right there. I see Chase's lagging out a little bit here, but I think he kind of gave his overall thoughts. But I think that's kind of where we're at. I would love to know what you guys think. Do you guys want the Padres to go make a move for Sandy Alcantara? Do you not think it's worth it to trade Dylan Cease away? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.